Welcome back to our mini-series Doing Analysis in English. Today on a platter, expectations towards text. Last week, we explained that for our purposes, text can fall into one of two categories, fictional and non-fictional text. The family tree then differentiated the categories further. While this makes for a fine overview, it isn't too much help in an exam. Therefore, we'll discuss a handy implication of this distinction. The family tree of texts helps you see what kind of texts there are out there. For an analysis in the Abitur, however, the question will never be, what is this text? Which feels a lot like border control at an airport, very single-minded and strict. But rather, what does this text do? Which should feel more like introducing a friend at a party. So, if we take our two categories of texts, it should be helpful to ask yourself two questions about them. 1. Which range of stylistic devices do you find in it and how often do they appear? And 2. Does it present any kind of argumentation? These questions will help you to focus your analysis in the exam. However, you should also reflect on what you find. That is, say if something is unusual or odd in this particular text in front of you. To do so, you have to know what to expect. Again, think of this like a party. If you know that Beatrix is a really sharp mind and witty person, and she then spends the evening sitting in a corner not saying a word, you will think that this is odd, and will ask her if everything is okay. You can do the same with texts. If you know the conventions, that is, if you know what texts usually do and how most of them are constructed, you can easily spot what's going on in the text you are grappling with. To be really good, let's add even a third layer to our chart. How much information is there in a text? We represent this in how big we make the symbol. Let's start with two non-fictional text types that both have a lot of information, hence we will draw really big dots, and that usually use close to zero stylistic devices, which is why we place them close to the x-axis, newspaper articles and scientific papers. Both have to present a very neutral and complete account of some affair in the world to the audience. There is, however, one big difference between them. An article just reports the facts. There is no interpretation, no attempt at connecting the dots apart from what happened. Every scientific paper tries to defend a thesis. That is, it has to be really good at arguing. Now that we have established these two fixed points, let's compare that to an essay. This text type usually gives the audience a wealth of information, thus big dot, and argues a lot, hence it goes to the right side. But, and that's a big but, it can also use language as it pleases. Therefore, you will usually find a lot of stylistic devices like imagery, metaphors, colorful languages, puns, and so on in an essay. This would be an absolute no-go for a report or a paper, but in an essay it's absolutely fine, necessary even for it to be a splendid essay. Okay, the clearest cases are in our chart now. What about the rest? Opinion, op-ed, and letter to the editor. They are, in a manner of speaking, the duller cousins of the three we just had. Not as much information, that means smaller dots, and somewhere in between the corners of the triangle. As they are middle of the road, that's where they go, smack in the middle. This means you can expect some figurative language, rhetoric, and a bit of argumentation, and this serves one dominant purpose in these text types. The writer wants to make a point, more precisely her or his point. If you remember the family tree, we classified them as personal pieces, less neutral than articles, less complete argumentation than papers, less colorful language than essays. When you have all of these types of texts, it should be easy for you to place the fictional texts, novels and short stories. I give you a minute to place them in the chart. And that's it. You got it, right? Both don't have to and usually don't teach us facts about the world, but can take a very liberal approach towards the truth. This means small triangles. Also, fiction usually does not set out to present a logical argumentation, so we place them close to the y-axis. Their strength, however, is telling a convincing story in wonderful language, hence the high rating on devices. Since short stories have to develop their ideas in less space, that is, more quickly than novels, they tend to be a bit denser, more ideas and more devices in the same space. And with that, we have completed our chart and this video. See you again next time when we will present a structure for the process of analysis.